Hey everybody, it's Local Joe sitting here with Rachele Evers and
The one and only.
right, no other successful real estate broker, extraordinary person, and just she's also my broker, which makes her even more special to me. So
It's partial.
right, yeah, a little bit. We're out here at Nexthome One in Brighton. So this is where Rachel's place of business is at this time. And we're going to sit down today and talk about business and marketing with her and what she's doing right now and kind of how she got here in the first place. So Rachel, what would you like the viewers to know about you on the start? I have a list here of a bunch of stuff. Should we tell them what happened last time?
Well, you have to now.
So we've already done this podcast once. Unfortunately, there were some problems with the audio, so here we are again. So
It'll be better this time.
yeah, we kind of already had a good run through, and we're going to change it up a little and kind of focus a little bit more on business and kind of what's going on in that part of her life, more than just kind of a rundown of who Rachel is, although we're going to hit on a lot of that too.
You can scroll through my Facebook feed and figure all that stuff out for yourself.
Yeah, well, we can talk about just like where you are on some of that stuff when we get to, because that's part of your business strategy, right? Is
Yes.
your social media and other things. So why don't we just start with Rachel? Who are you and what do you do?
My name is Rachele Evers, and I am a real estate broker owner of Nexthome One in Brighton, Fenton, and Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I'm a lot of things. I'm a certificate collector.
Yeah.
I have a bachelor's degree, a master's
A
degree.
bachelor's in what?
Oh, Bachelor of Science what did I end up with? I had to do a last minute switch. So I have way too many credits, but I ended up with Bachelor of Science in English and French. And then I have my master's in business administration, global business administration from Cleary University. But I'm also a Reiki master.
Right.
And I'm also a yoga instructor.
Yeah. So those, and you use those all together, right?
I use those all together.
Right.
Yes,
And like they should be, right?
Beautifully,
Yeah.
yes.
Balance or whatever people want to call it.
Yes.
Okay, so that's your little bit of your history. I forget what I'm talking about.
We're talking about what I do for a living. Who
Sorry,
am I?
yeah. Who are you, Rachel? Who are you? So let's start. So how did you get to be a real estate agent? We talked about that before a little bit. You kind of gave me a little insight, but
Yeah, the short version is I always wanted to be a real estate agent, but I was always very scared to work for myself.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't really understand what it meant to be a real estate agent. But what I thought I knew was that I was supposed to grow up and get a 9-to-5 with good bennies, and work
the American
somewhere.
dream, right? In the
Yeah,
Midwest.
yes.
So
Yep, get some job where somebody else would pay me for my time, and I would retire or have a pension. Like, I think it's the same lie that a lot of us Gen Xers kind of fell
you skipped
for.
the one thing in there though, buy a house, right? Because
Buy a
that's
house.
the American dream.
Yep, buy a house, get married, have a couple, 2.5 kids, white picket fence.
There you go.
That's what I thought I wanted.
And now you're helping other people kind of achieve that dream
Yeah.
to being a real estate agent, right?
Yeah, I'm helping people find their version of the dream.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. And you mentioned before too that you'd met. Just tell them the story about the glamorous agent that you met. When you were
Okay.
kind of
Yeah. So here's where I fell in love with the idea of being a real estate agent when I was a little girl, and I'm not sure how old I was. I feel like probably 5th or 6th grade, maybe. My parents were doing some transaction with a real estate agent. I couldn't be sure if they were buying a house, selling a house, or just interviewing. Don't know. We went to this woman's house. And I remember it clearly. She lived north of Howell in one of the older neighborhoods on the west side. And she was so well put together. She seemed so fancy to me
Right.
at my young, impressionable age. She just was, I just thought she was glamorous. I was dazzled by this chick. And that is where I had the first spark of, I want to be that when I grow up.
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. And here you are,
And here I am.
the glamorous people other people are looking up to, not
Hopefully.
wanting to be, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah, I think so. When I first met you, I definitely had this opinion like, look at this girl, she's got it all together.
All right, I'm glad it looks that way from the outside.
Really, when I first met you, it was kind of amazing because I remember Aaron brought me in here, and you just had this energy about you that I actually related to more than anything else. It was like, this person is like a good person, you know, like I just had a good
Thank you for that.
Whatever. Yeah. So that kind of, since we're talking about Aaron, so how maybe you want to explain a little bit of how your business is set up now and the structure of it and what's going on and what you guys are trying to do.
Yeah, so prior to owning Nexthome One and being a broker, I was an associate broker at another brokerage, which basically means I was a practicing agent who happened to also have the education and pass the test for a broker's license.
Right.
So not actively brokering, but having the licensure to do so if I chose. And along comes Aaron Curry, who basically called me up one day and was like, hey, I'm opening a franchise in Brighton, and you're my first choice to do it. And if you say no, I'm still going to do it without you. And Aaron Curry is a broker of Nexthome statewide in the neighboring town of Howell.
Right.
So
Which is how we met, because I knew Aaron from school. I grew up in Howell, and so did Rachel.
So did I. But I did not know Aaron in school.
And I did not know Rachel in school.
That's right. We all found each other way later.
Right.
Anyway, I was like, well, shit, if he's doing that, I have to be involved. So, yes. Of course, I made him wait for that answer. I had to sleep on it.
Right.
But I knew what I was doing.
And so at that point, were you just deciding on one brokerage, or had you already decided on a plan? What is the plan, kind of? Or you're taking over Michigan, right?
Honestly, so how far back do you want me to go?
Well, just give us a little bit of recap of what kind of got you started, and then maybe where it went and where it's at.
As the brokerage thing?
Yeah.
So as an agent, I quickly outgrew every brokerage that I hung my license with.
Okay.
And it became more and more clear to me with each brokerage I went to that what I wanted didn't exist. So I knew I would have to build it.
Can you explain what you mean by outgrew the brokerage? You don't mean financially so much as like the way that you wanted it to be, right? Or kind of how it worked. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll let you explain something.
I'm going to struggle with this one because my performance would surpass what the broker who was holding my license was capable of supporting.
Okay.
And I mean like in very technical ways. I'm really good at contract language, processes, and efficiencies.
The details.
Efficiencies and processes and contact language. So yes, the details, but specifically, it's very difficult to be a high performer in a brokerage that requires a bunch of unnecessary paperwork.
You can say BS.
Well, the BS shows up in a lot of ways, but I'm trying to dive into a specific example.
Okay.
So if there is a lot of unnecessary paperwork, that makes it harder for me to be a good agent and advocate for my clients.
Right.
I'm going to show up and be like, this document is bloatware. Yeah. It doesn't serve my client. So that's just as an example.
Right.
I don't even know if that's clear, but...
No, that makes sense. And that's one of the things you're trying to do at Nexthome is reduce the paperwork, right?
Yes.
So you talked before about the minimum stuff you need for a listing.
Bureaucracy is the enemy of good business. So that is what I'm really breathing life into, freeing up real agents to absolutely represent their client in the best possible way. And that is more and more difficult to do when there are unnecessary shackles placed on the agent. I don't know.
Now, do you and Aaron share the goals of those goals, or does Aaron have different goals and why he's trying to do what he's doing and what you guys are doing together?
I cannot speak to what Aaron's building at Nexthome statewide. That
predates
I just mean
me. Together, though.
So I don't know if I'm comfortable going too far down that path because Nexthome One is coming out of my desire to build what I want.
Okay.
And Aaron is a practicing broker with over 30 years experience as a broker.
Right.
So I can tell you where the partnership absolutely makes sense. Aaron has seen pretty much everything. So a lot of times when I face something new as a broker that I don't know how to navigate,
Yeah.
I get scared.
Okay.
Or I don't see all possible solutions because I've never been there.
Right.
Guess who's already seen this
Yeah,
and knows how it's going to play out, or knows which tools I didn't even know were available to me to handle it?
Just the experience.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He is like my clutch.
Yeah. And I understand that. I kind of just wondered though, did he come at you with that, with the
No.
same kind of language that you're using to try
No.
to change the? Okay.
No, he and I got to know each other during I created a weekly or monthly, I can't even remember. During COVID, I created a Zoom room in our local agent group for all of the agents to we were navigating that space together.
Trying to figure out what to do.
Absolutely. And one thing that our community has really well with a bunch of agents, we all recognize that we have a common goal. So it's not super combative.
Yeah.
When I'm representing my client and you're representing yours, we're working to get our clients their respective desired outcomes without our egos getting into a pissing match with each other.
Yeah.
So that's important to know, because then we have this baseline ecosystem where we were trying to figure out how do we navigate and advocate for our clients through COVID, which was a crazy time.
Right.
That's only important for this conversation because in that space, Aaron consistently showed up, and so we got to know each other.
Right.
Which was really...
Was that community the real estate community, or just Livingston County?
No, closed doors. It was a Livingston County real estate group.
Okay. So it was pretty confined group, pretty small.
Yes.
Or not.
Yeah,
Okay.
but when the world got shut down, we were all like,
Yeah,
oh
I understand.
shit, will we have a job tomorrow? Are we even allowed to work?
Right.
How are you showing houses when you can't go in them right now?
Yeah.
We were sharing
That's
how
awesome.
we were navigating.
You guys were able to find each other, help each other like that.
Yeah.
So you and Aaron met then, and then he approached you, and you decided that you were going to do something together. So
yes.
Was it just Brighton at first, or
Yep.
and then how did Fenton come on, and then how did Kalamazoo come into play?
It has just as we've built it, the vision has become clearer, and when you share your vision with other people who are aligned, they get excited about it too. So we've had some fast growth. We're actually intentionally stopping that growth right now so that we don't stretch out too fast, too thin,
Okay.
But our processes are dialed in, and I feel like we're, there's always room for improvement. We're working on the last 20%, that last 20%, just getting it perfect.
Yeah. And how's it going? You're feeling
good. Right now we're at the point of being able to run so that we don't know if there's a problem until it's a real outlier and it shows up.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Kind of. I didn't know specifically what I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's see. I don't know what to say.
What do you want to know? Don't look at your
Yeah, I know. I was trying to go back to your background and stuff because I guess it's not. Originally, I was doing this interview more to showcase you,
right?
But I think part of showcasing you is your talents and your business savvy, right? A little bit.
Let's talk about business.
Yeah. So,
good.
So where do you got? Okay, so I guess the future of Nexthome is what I'm kind of interested in knowing. Yeah. What do you see it as? How big do you want it to get? Do you want it to? You've already grown to 3 brokerages, which is pretty impressive, right? Pretty quickly, and then you also have, and this is during a time where real estate is kind of taking a back seat a little bit over the last year, at least for sure, with rates. So how does that affect your business? How have you seen what's going on in the market affect your business?
Do you want me to answer that as a
Why don't we start
agent?
Yeah, start as an agent first and then go to the brokerage side of things. Is that?
Yep, that's perfect. Yep, that's what I was asking. So as an agent, what is the impact of the market on
you?
my business?
Yeah, how has that affected your business?
Honestly, I hate when people start a sentence with that because it usually is a trigger that they're about to lie to you. Yeah. And I'm really just trying to organize my thoughts because what the general public thought was happening when money was cheap and everybody was fighting to buy homes.
Yeah.
What I would hear out in the wild from regular consumers who are not in this industry was, oh, must be nice. You're so easy, making so much money.
Right.
What people did not see is that as an agent, we were all working 3 times as hard.
Yeah.
So I was doing my job to the best of my ability 3, 4, 5 times before my client got a house. And that's just getting into contract to decide if they were actually going to perform and getting all of the shit lined up to get from contract to closing, which is also my job. So
what you're talking about there mostly is supply, right? Because there was no supply, so everybody was fighting for homes. Everybody was fighting for
yes, and with money being cheap, you were having
bidding wars, basically here.
Well, we still have bidding wars.
Yeah.
But you were
Crazy
having
bidding wars.
30 people trying to buy one house instead of 3 people trying to buy one house.
Right.
And try to buy one house, I mean actively writing an offer. So you were having 60 people go through, 30 people writing an offer. Now you have 18 people go through, 3 writing an offer.
During that time, I listened to a lot of podcasts and stuff, and I heard people talking about some of the big funds and stuff buying up houses for rentals and really driving the prices up.
Beautiful diagram I could draw for you. This is a perfect storm of a couple of factors.
Okay.
Resulting in the reduced inventory.
Okay, yeah, and the driving up of the prices, right? Because they were paying higher a lot of time for pricing than what a normal or a person that would be living there might be willing to pay because
might
they
be
were looking
able
at
to pay.
Right.
Not even willingness; it's willingness plus ability.
Right, obviously, and now with rates up, it's even worse. So
well, with rates up, it's actually made people buying second homes and Airbnbs, investment properties. It's made that less achievable for people or less interesting to people, which makes that inventory available for people who need a freaking roof over their heads.
Okay. So you were talking about the chart. So what?
No, I have this diagram. It's a boiled down version of presentation that Barry Habib gives, and Barry Habib is the founder owner of MBS Highway. So he primarily communicates with mortgage loan originators, but he has this beautiful presentation and he's shouting it from the rooftops. I've been hearing it from other sources now too, finally, but from a population demographic standpoint, and I'm probably bastardizing this, but the concept is this. The millennial generation is massive.
Yeah.
Just the size of that population is huge.
Right.
On average, they buy their first house around age 33. And the highest volume of them reached home buying age in the last couple of years.
Right,
so we're portioned through the highest number of the most likely to buy a home population, and by volume, there's that.
So we're continuing on talking about the millenniums.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Okay.
Biggest group in the world.
Yes.
Right?
So just to recap, and sorry about the interruption.
Oh, good.
The largest population size, the highest volume reaching statistically likely home buying age, and generally speaking, and here's where the diagram is really helpful, generally speaking, that generation would be buying houses that are being vacated by an almost as large generation, which is the baby boomers, my parents' generation.
Right.
But the baby boomers are not vacating their houses. In fact, they're living longer than ever.
Right.
They're living longer than ever. They're buying second houses. They're buying investment properties. Everybody wants an Airbnb. They have their pensions and their 401ks, which include like Blackstones of the world, that are also buying real estate, residential real estate as an investment. So the inventory isn't being unlocked. We've got the highest population the largest population, highest volume reaching statistical likely age to buy this product, along with the competition of the baby boomer generation and their financial vehicles, and the Gen Xers who are also having their financial vehicles buying property, right. And they want to have an Airbnb, and they want a second home or a lake house. So it was just, when money was so cheap especially, it was just an insane amount of people trying to buy a very limited number of product. And I know that's supply and demand, and we could have handled this just by saying, well, it's supply and demand.
It is important. And
context matters.
Yeah. And then I think now the rates are going down, right? So now they've locked in at those lower rates. Now people don't, you can't afford to move because prices are still high. Rates bring the affordability way,
Well, but there's like a secret beautiful thing that happened with the rates. It made it a lot harder to buy an investment property with a cheap mortgage. So it really kicked the toe dipping investor
the people
out of the market.
Well, a lot of the people that probably came in during the pandemic, I think, where they were just like sitting around looking for something to do and decided to become investors, and
that was part of it. But let's talk about the pandemic too, because in addition to the background that we just talked about with all of the population demographics, during COVID, in that 2020 year, even though the real estate industry continued to thrive, there became this pent-up demand because a lot of people wouldn't leave their house.
Yeah.
So they weren't looking, even though they were buyers, or they weren't comfortable buying without seeing a house in person. A lot of people had job insecurity in their mind, even if not in reality. So they weren't pulling the trigger. So you then had this build up, this build up of buyer tension that also kind of 2021 in 2022 and even into 2023 was just like
crazy.
Yeah, we were playing catch up.
Right.
So all your real estate agents were working at least 3 times as hard as we're used to for the same or less money, just so you know. It was not easy money like everybody wants to talk about that, and they just don't know.
Well, being in real estate is simple, right? Being an agent.
Oh yeah, it's easy.
Speaking of money, so do you have any comment you'd like to make about the recent thing that happened with Nair? Or
do you want to talk about that? I have an opinion about that.
Well, that's what I'd like to hear, just your opinion about what happened and then what you think might happen going forward with how things will work.
I do not ever give short answers. I don't know how.
Thank God.
Here's my over-explaining. Right. So, first of all, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a real estate broker and a girl with an opinion, but I literally am only representing my own understanding and my own opinion. It's critical that I say that here. But here's the deal. In Michigan, I can speak to how this impacts Michigan. In real estate, laws vary from state to state. But what NAR is a group of, it's the National Association of Realtors. A realtor is a member who has agreed to abide by certain rules of engagement surrounding ethical behavior and treating people equally. And you can absolutely look up the Code of Ethics if you want to.
Yep. And that's something you have to sign to become a part of the group, right?
So you can be an agent without being a realtor.
Right.
And this is important because the realtor members, as part of their rules of engagement, 30 years, now I'm going to pause there. 30 years ago, there was no such thing as buyer's agency. I'm ballparking that number, but when I bought my first house, buyer agency was brand new. So what used to happen in our industry, I'm talking to the people, to happen in our industry is Mr. Homebuyer would drive by a house and see a sign in the yard that said, for sale, call Rachele Evers. And they would call Rachele Evers. I was not in the industry at this time, but I'm using myself as the agent. Hey, Rachel, I saw this house at 123 Main Street and I really want to buy it. And I'd be like, I can totally help you. I would help those motherfuckers buy that house. I write the paperwork. I'll write the contract. And guess what? Those buyers felt like I was helping them. But my contract was with the sellers. So all agents back in the day were always only ever working for sellers. And buyers had no representation. You know why? Because there was no way to pay a buyer's agency. So in an effort to protect the buyer consumer and make sure that they had representation in a transaction instead of just feeling like the agent on the sign was helping them, they made that infrastructure part of the agreement for cooperating compensation, which then meant, we'll go back to Rachel, seller hires me to sell their house. I'm in charge of the marketing. I'm helping them navigate contracts. I'm doing all the same things, but I'm also advertising a portion of my compensation to make sure that a buyer's agent will be compensated and have representation, since the buyer is the one bringing the money. Like, the seller doesn't have $1 to pay anybody with unless that buyer shows up with their mortgage or their checking account. So that buyer was bringing the money that the seller was dispersing to their agent, and that buyer was not getting represented. So in an effort to make sure that it was fair play for buyers and sellers, NAR made a rule that in the MLS, the multiple list service, you must advertise some kind of buyer broker compensation, even if it's just $1. But because they said you must, and I have to tell you, I did not read the full result of the lawsuit.
But that's basically the problem, right?
The problem is they forced some kind of compensation, which then they lost on it. They didn't lose, they settled.
Right.
But the
problem that they couldn't overcome, basically.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even call it a problem.
Yeah.
The ambulance chasing attorneys saw the billions of dollars in real estate transactions in a low interest, high sales volume year across the nation, and they were like, how do I get a piece of that money? Sellers incorrectly I don't know if they were fed this belief or somebody didn't do the whole equation for them.
Yeah.
But people say, agents would even say this. Buyer's agents would say, well, I work for free. The seller pays me. Fucking bullshit. Seller doesn't. The cost of agency and representation is borne by the transaction. But the requirement to advertise some compensation instead of allowing it to be zero, like you could put a penny in there, but let's say it's $1. You couldn't put zero, but you could put $1. Even though those are effectively the same, they're not technically the same.
Okay.
So a technically interpreted
So
law,
that's in the advertisement they had to do that? You're talking about
it's in the MLS.
Oh,
in the MLS.
Okay.
And okay, so here's the other pieces, and this is where the real estate industry is like the mafia. The MLS is a group of associations, and to join an association, you have to become a realtor member. So if you, Joe, decided to go be a real estate agent,
I did.
Without a brokerage and without an association, you have at your fingertips no documents, no legal advice, and you can look for houses on Zillow just like the rest of somewhat inaccurate data. You don't have showing time, you're paying, you just don't have all the tools.
Right.
Anyway, it's really funny to me because by removing that requirement, the media is representing that, yay, sellers are free from having to pay these buyers' agents. The reality is buyers no longer have representation.
Well, now, just so we're clear, and I don't totally know this either, but so the way it's set up now, before anything changes, is that typically the seller does actually pay the 6%, right, and give they get paid the 6%, take 3%.
I will stop you right there. There is no 6%, 3%.
Well, just assuming those numbers, but that's kind of what we see typically, right?
So
I know you can specify.
If you enter a contract with me for 8%.
Yep.
And I'm selling your house.
Yep.
And we've agreed that I will do, and I get real specific on my contracts. I think that's critical and missed by a lot of agents. But I will do this, all this shit for you.
Yeah.
And it's free until your house closes. So this thing number one worth noting is real estate broker agent fees are not cheap because we do all the work first and then only get paid at closing. Right. Absolutely. But part of my contract says that if you're contracting with me to pay me 8% of what we get for your house inside of these parameters, I'm going to advertise 3% of that as an advertised form of compensation for an agent who's representing a buyer who buys your property.
So that's kind of what I was saying. So you are in a roundabout way paying the other agent.
Where are you going to get that money?
I'm just trying to make sure we understand how it actually works.
So am I, but you have to do both sides of the equation. So you, the seller, if nobody shows up with the money, that buyer is bringing the money.
I get what you're saying. I understand.
I'm going to
but
beat the dead
just
horse.
so that people don't think that because the buyer, when you set up with the buyer's agent, the buyer isn't actually paying the 3% to their agent. They're paying the 6% or 8% to the seller's agent, or they're actually giving the cash to the seller. The seller's saying they're 8% to the seller's agent.
It's all dictated by whatever's negotiated
Right.
in the contract. So
But typically that's how it works today.
I have had buyers pay me directly. It's all about what you can negotiate.
Okay.
Literally nothing has changed.
Yeah.
I do feel like the ruling is going to force buyer agents to have real conversations with their clients about how they're compensated.
Yeah.
Because a lot of agents would be like, I work for free, the seller pays me. Well, saying that often enough made it true in the public mind,
Yeah.
which again,
Which doesn't seem like a good place in the mind to me.
How hard would you work for free?
And not only that, but you just basically said you're working for the seller, right? And you're supposed to be the buyer's agent.
Yeah,
and
well-
you're saying the seller's paying me. I mean, in a way,
Yeah,
that's
it's
kind of a fucked up.
It's a conflict. And I think a lot of agents really just don't understand themselves how it works.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I had a contract with a buyer. We agreed. I showed him a bunch of houses. I'm going to work for him. The rate we agreed on was 3%.
Yeah.
The house he wanted to buy advertised 2.5% compensation. Now, I have the flexibility with my brokerage to accept 2.5%. However, we had written offers on 3 houses, and 2 of them, the buyer had a change of heart and did not perform. So it's not like we wrote and didn't even win the deal.
Yeah.
We wrote and walked away, wrote and walked away, wrote and didn't win. Months worth of houses. So I was not willing to reduce my rate, and my contract was my contract. And if it had been the first house, I probably would have made the adjustment to 2.5%.
Yeah.
Client was well aware from day one that if the advertised compensation does not match my contracted rate, he is on the hook for my rate.
The difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
And that conversation should have always been being had with buyers. And listing agents would neglect to let their sellers have a say in the advertised compensation.
Okay.
So if I were listing your house and I was like, you're going to hire me for 8%, and you said okay, and I went and advertised 1% to a buyer agent and never told you I was doing that.
And I'm thinking in my head, because a lot of times we've heard the 3%
or in your head,
4%.
In your head, it's 8%, so 4 should go to the buyer agent because it's split.
Right, it's fair.
It's not split.
Yeah.
It's literally what you would negotiate in your contract. So I'm over talking all of this because it infuriates me that it got to this point.
Yeah, well, it's important to understand, right?
Well, the reality is transparency solves all of these problems.
Well, and that's why you're so adamant about contract language, right?
Oh my
because
gosh.
everything can be kind of spelled out in the contract
Yes.
as long as you actually read it and
Yes.
pay attention.
Yes, and less words are usually better. Just pro tip, if you need to make a change to a contract, just do it with one sentence. You don't got to say why. You don't want to say if then. You don't got to say
just stick to
feelings.
The facts, right?
Just like say the thing that's happening. It will make everybody happier. Yeah. Anyway, I'm kind of a snob about language.
No, that's cool. It's for some reason that just reminded me of something I've been thinking about lately, like sticking to the facts. Alex Ramosi, one of the guys I listen to a lot, he talks about just quit judging what things mean.
Yes.
Just stick to what the actual fact is. Like,
Yes.
The example he gives is, say, you hear about a 35-year-old man sleeping with a 14-year-old girl the first day that he met her or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds kind of creepy. Mm-hmm. But if you understand that they were put together to be married 300 years ago, it's not a big deal, right?
Yep.
Because of the context.
Context.
But people always forget about that. And when you're deep into something, you don't realize that it's just the context. So someone hearing that today would think it was...
Yeah, it's funny that you gave that example because with the context of the conversation, I knew I was going to be looking for an alternative interpretation, and I immediately thought, what if that's his daughter and they just, what if it was like sleeping?
Right. You went a different way of sleeping.
Her mom just died, and they were like...
It just shows how many different things could have happened, right? And
absolutely.
And people always jump to judgments based on their view of the world, which is another big thing I think about a lot is perspective and
Yes.
just the lens you see things through. So
Yeah.
we could get into
Now we're
totally
flirting
different
with my
tangent.
favorite territory. Yeah.
So let's go back to for just 1 second about the rate or the percentages and stuff. So
Yeah.
moving forward, what do you think can happen next? So how do you think that's? Because I've heard some people say that it's actually going to start lowering the overall rate that agents
may.
will be able to ask.
It may.
And in
I
other
think
countries, they're typically 1 to 2% is what you see across the world. Is what
their
I
whole
just recently
infrastructure
read.
is different.
Yeah, I know.
Their whole infrastructure is different.
Okay.
So I think that I think it might be a little wobbly for a minute while people get their bearings.
Yeah.
While agents learn how to have those conversations, I think you're going to see a falling off of a lot of agents who don't bring anything to the table,
Yeah.
so they won't know how to
deal
talk
with it.
about.
Yeah.
They're so used.
They don't know what to say,
You know,
basically, right?
in their mind, they believe the seller pays them.
Yeah.
So because they don't understand what they're bringing to the table, and they're not comfortable charging their client, I think you're going to see the real estate industry is, in my mind, famous for chewing up and spitting out wannabes
Yeah.
like a revolving door. Within 2 years, you're either spit out or you're still in.
Right.
So I think it's going to
It
spit
does
a
seem
lot
to
of
be
people
where,
out.
like, when the market's good, a lot of agents come in, and
Yes.
that's what I just kind of have noticed, at least the last few years, especially. There seem to be a lot of people became real estate
when the
agents.
market looks good. It's
Right.
like- and
And then you were just talking about how it looked good, but actually it was one of the hardest times to be in the
it's
market,
hard,
right?
hard work.
Yeah.
Yes.
And even now, and so now, if you try to get it now, also though, it's kind of hard because there's not as many purchase agreements are being written.
Yeah.
People aren't buying as many homes.
Yes.
People aren't moving, whatever. So trying to find those new clients,
Yeah.
which is something that I've,
That's the hardest thing.
yeah,
finding
to be
clients,
honest,
finding
which
your
is something
clients.
that I, obviously I'm an agent at your office, and I've never done anything, which
Yeah.
is something I think about a lot. Because when I first got my license, I never planned on doing real estate as a full-time job.
Yeah.
But the more I think about it, it's like I pay all these dues and stuff, and it's like, why am I not?
Why are you not?
All right, so we were talking about why I'm not an agent, basically, right? Or why I am an agent, why I'm not doing anything with myself.
Right.
So, and it's not that I'm not doing anything with
Yeah,
it. I
why
don't
you
wanna be-
haven't specifically sought out a real estate transaction.
Right. And I think for me, what I know is that I feel not so confident.
Yeah.
So having you guys in my back pocket, we
Yep.
kind of went over this a minute ago off camera. Me and Rachel were talking about it, but having Aaron and Rachel, back me up because they're the brokers here, and so as an agent, I'm just really an arm of Rachel, an extension of her. So knowing that I have their all those years of experience and everything you guys know does make me feel better. But at the same time, not having done a transaction yet,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just have imposter syndrome or whatever.
Right.
So it is interesting to me though because I feel like I know a lot about real estate and I think I know a lot about investing in real estate, and sometimes I don't think about being an agent. It's not always about that, right?
Yeah.
And it was interesting to me when I first started here how I found out a lot of the agents don't really know a lot about investing is what I noticed or what I feel.
True.
And I was surprised too that why they're not just buying a bunch of rentals, because to me that's like the dream, right? Is just to buy a bunch of rentals. So, do you do any investing, or how do you feel about investing?
I kind of fell into investing a little bit. I'm not a real estate ownership mogul.
Okay.
But I have 3 properties as investment properties.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like as an agent, you're going to see at least a couple deals that look good at some point, right?
Yeah, it's, yes,
I mean,
that look good to my eyes.
now, I'm wondering though, because it seems like also though, sometimes you might just find ones that maybe aren't the best deal, but they still look good to you because it's in a great spot, or
It fits a
doesn't,
need.
not financially, maybe not the best investment,
Yeah.
but it looks good.
Right.
Was that any of yours, or were yours good investments? Did you get good deals on them? Or?
No, I didn't get good. I paid fair prices.
They were
for
like
them.
necessity. It was just like something you needed.
Yeah,
and
there
it
were
kinda
some
turned into an investment.
circumstances.
Yeah.
I needed a place for my daughter to live, so I bought it.
Yeah, well, that just makes sense, right?
Yes.
It's kind of like buying a house. What do you think about buying a home? Do you think you should, as a person, is a home a good investment for someone, or what about renting? How do you feel about that dynamic?
The answer is always going to be it depends.
Yeah.
There are a few common pitfalls that float around out in the world. So let's start with look numerically at statistically homeowners have more wealth than renters, and that's just a numerical fact.
Yeah.
Without judgment. So from that aspect, buying a home can appear to make sense.
Yeah.
But you have to look at your lifestyle and what you want. Because
Right.
if you're going to be backpacking across Europe for 10 out of 12 months every year, that house could become a freaking shackle, ball and chain
And that's,
problem.
you mentioned the millennials earlier, and that's one of the things I've heard a lot about the millennials is that they actually, a lot of them prefer to live in apartment type living
Yep.
where they can easily move in and out. They have
So
access to
that's-
gyms, all that stuff, right?
And that's the other
people.
piece. If your lifestyle, like home ownership is great,
Yeah.
and maybe you have wealth if you stay in the same house for 20 years and you build up equity,
Right.
but the piece that's not really in that calculation
Yes.
is the cost that you had to finance the new roof and your water heater blew
Right.
out and your furnace and you had something living in your attic and all of the plus all the gas you put in your lawnmower and all
Yeah,
the
yeah.
hours you spent out there mowing the lawn. Like home ownership is more than just your mortgage.
Right.
And people forget that. You
Yeah.
lose the freedom of, like, I have one of my units is flooding. So the phone call comes to me and it's now my problem.
Right, yeah. Everything comes to you, right? That's
Yeah.
the nice thing about the apartment living. You
Yes.
got the lawn, everything is taken care of.
Yes.
So, yeah, and it seems today people are a lot more willing to pay for convenience, too, than they used to be. I mean, you can see what people get delivered, coffee delivered, and they pay outrageous, crazy.
$11 or whatever.
Yeah, well, first you're paying $7 for a coffee, right?
Yeah.
Even at the local diner, I paid $3 just for like at the little coffee shop. Not a coffee shop. I understand they're expensive there, but just like a
Like a little chef or a big boy.
yeah,
whatever.
exactly. It was like $3 something for a regular coffee. And it's like that just seemed kind of ridiculous. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
The
It's-
prices these days. are just
right,
not the way
I
it
feel
used
old
to be.
saying that, right? I remember back in my day.
That's right. Get
Right,
off my
gas
lawn.
is 70 cents again. That actually, I think it was like in the 90s when I was in high school.
I used to go to the store with a note and buy cigarettes for my mom.
That is so funny that you say that. I did the exact same
Yeah,
thing.
I think we all did.
Do you
right?
want to hear another? This one's even funnier because I was 5. Because I know based on where we lived and how old I was at that time.
Yeah.
And my mom sent me and my sister, who was 4, to walk by ourselves from. We lived at, if you know the area, it's 8 Mile in Farmington.
Yeah.
You know, so but we walked right onto the main road of Farmington, and there was a party store there where we always they bought cigarettes.
Yeah.
So the people knew us there, but still, it was like a quarter mile from our house. You
Yeah.
know?
We used
Go
to
get us
walk-
some cigarettes.
We used to cross a semi-major road, Mason Road, if
Yeah.
you know where that is.
Yep.
So I lived on the corner of Mason and Isbell when I was a little girl,
Okay.
by the Pepsi plant.
Yep.
We'd have to walk through a trailer park and cut through behind some fence to get to the little store.
Yeah, I know what
Party
you're
store.
talking about exactly.
Yeah, that was my path to get cigarettes for my mom. Anyway,
Yeah. Good times, right?
Yeah.
Good old Howell memories.
yep, different world.
I used to ride. Well, we won't talk.
Yeah, okay.
Let's get back into business.
Okay.
So, all right, what were we talking about? We were talking about the real estate industry, kind of where it's at right now. So, how are sales going right now? Do you see, I saw purchase agreements were up a little bit this week.
Yeah, it's
Or listings
normalizing.
and stuff. Do you
Well,
feel like things are
Those any statistic that says this is up, this is down. I want to know how far back
how far
are you going?
I understand.
Like over last week or
The
over
news
last
is so
year?
crazy. You watch it and they make
No, I
you-
don't. I don't
It
watch
drives
it.
me crazy. I almost can't stand it either.
Don't watch it.
I just like to hear what they say because I know how they twist the numbers like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like, "Oh, housing's up this much," and it's like, "Well, yeah, but you're comparing it to an all-time low last year, and
Yeah.
you're saying it's going down or
Yes.
whatever, and it doesn't really make."
That is literally designed to give you that dopamine hit like it's a biochemical reaction in your body. That news cycle is designed
Yeah.
to get this like
They're trying to keep you stuck right there. They want your
reacting. You're
attention,
reacting.
right?
It's outrage. It's amazing. It's
It's-
outrageous.
it's
I'm angry.
crazy.
I'm gonna have a drink of my water if you don't mind.
No, that's fine. All right, so what? So I guess with Nexthome One, then, what would be your ultimate goal? What do you?
to represent agents to best represent their clients and be true fiduciaries, looking out for their clients' best interests, even if it's in conflict with their own. That is my passion point.
And you're trying to make that scalable in some way?
Absolutely. I'm trying to make it available. I feel like the brokerage is the ecosystem that the agent can operate from. And if the ecosystem is strong and clear, then the agent can represent the client instead of trying to represent the agent.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It takes a lot off their plate to give them time to focus on what's important, right? Which is representing their client. And take away a bunch of the BS.
And the understanding to know how to represent, and that they are an extension of me, representing the best interest of the client as a fiduciary.
Right.
Not what I think is best for you, Mr. Buyer, but literally what, I can educate my client so that they can make a clear decision, and then my job becomes to back their play.
Right.
That's a hard stop.
And the way you're helping your agents do that, you do a lot of training and stuff for us. You guys do some of the CDS, and we have them, coaching calls, and
yes,
I think you guys do a lot. There's lots of ways that maybe everybody doesn't always take advantage of all of them.
They don't all work for everybody, so we try to have diversity in presentation so that there's an opportunity for every agent's learning style. Yeah.
The thing I like the most about being at Nexthome is just like the community feel of it. Like the community yoga you have.
Yes.
To me, that's cool.
Yeah.
It just feels good, you know what I mean? But you do feel like everybody is just like a group. Even the CGS stuff.
Yep.
When we come in and do that, and we work with Nexthome statewide, sometimes they come in and do it with us. Everybody's just,
Yeah. It's when we all win, we all win, right? When you raise the water table, all the boats float higher. It's like that is the mentality. And those meetings, for whatever it's worth, are open to any agent and any professional in any industry, or literally anyone with interest in that topic. For those career growth series,
I have noticed some other companies, even like mortgage or movers and mortgage companies and things like that. So that is cool that you guys include everybody. Yeah.
I think a lot of people make a mistake of thinking that because we're a real estate brokerage, it's only for our agents, and we're kind of breaking down that barrier by hosting some presenters that offer value for any business owner in the community. Anyway, sorry.
No,
we're moving on.
I'm not moving on.
Okay,
you're talking. I like to hear you.
Okay.
All right. So, is there anything else you'd like to talk about? What's going on in your brain about real estate lately? Anything exciting you've heard about, or anything you wanted to talk about?
No, I'm happy to see that buyers have a real shot at putting a roof over their heads. I know the news and certain outlets like to be like, oh, your mortgage now is this much more on a $400,000 house, and if you'd have bought it 2 years ago, well, first of all, money can't be the only driver for a decision.
Right.
It literally can't. It would be foolish to work that way.
And you can't go backwards.
And you have to do the whole equation. I think it's still a good time to buy a house, because I don't think there's ever a bad time to buy a house as long as you need a house.
Right.
Right? Like, unless you're looking to flip in 6 months, and that's a different conversation. If you're looking for a roof over your head, now is a great time to buy a house. Like, you can't do anything about the context in which you're buying.
Do you find that most of the people that you work with are typically people that need to move for some reason, not typically an investor or some other person?
Yes.
So, because it's funny, because a lot of times when people do talk about it, they talk about it in the scope of an investor.
Like they're an investor.
But typically, what moves the market is not investors. It's people that are getting jobs, having sex, and
relocation,
having kids.
Yes.
So.
Or, what if you just fucking want to?
Right.
Like, I don't like my house anymore. I want to move. That's okay too. And it is mind-bending to me. So I get in trouble in my real estate communities for saying this all the time, but I'm going to say it to you. Your house is not an investment. the place where you live may turn out to be a good financial asset in your future.
Right.
But it is not an investment. Consider that your house is your home and it's where you live and it's where you're going to get in a fight with your spouse and you're going to go to separate corners of the house and you're going to be mad and then you're going to find each other again and you're going to paint the living room together and you're going to tear down walls and get rid of furniture and your kids are going to come back to stay there. And if you're trying to do that and also make your millions in investing with one fucking stroke, you're going to drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
So buy your house because you love it and you're going to live in it. And if it will be a financial asset without you even trying.
Yeah.
But if you're gaming the system, use different money for that. Already have your house piece handled.
Me and my buddy were at coffee yesterday, and we were talking about an asset. And Robert Kiyosaki, are you familiar with him?
I am.
And his
He
version
taught
of an
me
asset.
About, I have a diagram that I drew based on a talk that he gave on my wall at my home office.
Because he famously doesn't call a house that you live in kind of as an asset because it costs you money, and it's not.
I
making
didn't
you money,
even know that.
So it's an interesting
I'm
conversation.
in good company then.
Yeah. So. Well, yeah, because his thinking is if it costs you money, then it's not an asset; it's a deficit, right? So, like you, they're one or the other. So, So a house, you have to pay taxes on it. You have to pay your mortgage, all that stuff.
You have to fix it constantly.
And Grant Cardone, who is another famous investor, famously always says that if you have enough money to buy a house, you should buy it as an investment property and then rent your house because for tax purposes it makes more sense and for ease of move and various other things. So anyways, that's kind of another conversation.
Well, and here we come back to what is the answer? The answer is it depends.
Yeah.
What are your desired outcomes?
Your goals, right?
Yep.
Yeah, everybody always forgets that part. They just want the easy one-step answer.
Well, they make the mistake of thinking there is an answer that is objectively correct, and there isn't.
Everything is very objective. Anytime you got the subjective crap in there, right? You have
and subjective crap is always in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you stick with just the facts, which is kind of what we were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah, but
it's not good or bad. It's just
is
what it is.
It just is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. Okay. So, what else we got? I think we got through all this stuff. I keep looking at the sheet like it's going to tell me something,
and
I'm just going to throw it away. So,
right on there. James Bond. That's phone call we took earlier.
All right. So, I think we covered a lot of that. So, we were talking about the real estate industry, where it's going, investing, what we're going to do with our life. So. What about some other kind of goals you have? Let's talk a little bit more about Rachel, not so much about business or whatever.
Well, what do you want to know? There's a lot. It's a deep well.
Well, what do you want to share? I mean, you do a lot of like meditating and yoga and why don't you talk about some of that part of your life and just what you get out of it and why you do it and if you would encourage other people to do it and
Absolutely.
Why?
Yes. Okay, that's a lot. The reason I do it is because...
How did you get started in any of that? Have you always been active in that kind of stuff?
No, I really couldn't tell you. I don't even know where.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I would have thought you...
I've had existential crisis vibes my entire life.
Okay.
What is the meaning of life? Why are we here?
Yeah, you were a deep thinker.
What is the point? Absolutely. And in my late 20s, I had a... event that kind of showed me that I had been living my life according to what I thought other people told me I ought to do with my life.
Right.
So it's a really fucking big circle of bullshit.
Yeah.
So I had arranged and I was miserable. I had arranged my whole life around the things that I thought that other people wanted me to do, that I thought they were telling me I should do, including my parents, including culture.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did that.
That's great. So that's a whole other thing.
It is. It's a whole other. So I'm going to skimming. Yeah. I told you it's a deep well. So I built this perfectly looking on the outside life.
Yeah.
Literal American dream, and I was miserable.
Okay.
And I wasn't miserable inside, like I hate my life, but I was literally projecting hate and judgment out onto other people, and it took me.
No, when you said, did you mean like because they weren't doing what you were doing? You were like,
you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. How dare I can't believe didn't take her child in for a vaccination.
Really? Okay.
Day 17 after the doc. Like, literally. I was a miserable cunt. I did not like myself. Therefore, I was not able to enjoy this beautiful life that I had built.
Gotcha.
It was beautiful on paper, but I hated it because I did not have an inner light.
Yeah.
And now we're going to just take that concept and we're going to say it took me a decade to make a bunch of changes and mistakes, some massive, some tiny, to really figure out and find my way to things like frequencies and Reiki energy and yoga as a practice, not for getting in shape, but for getting in alignment.
Right.
And the more I use this analogy for people when I talk about this energy work because it sounds very woo-woo.
Yeah.
And I used to beat people to the punch by saying the hippie shit, right? Like, I'm going to dismiss it before you can kind of language.
Okay.
But the reality is, the best way I can explain is working on and in my own light and energy. A couple things are coming to mind right now, but thing one is it's all the things that are, quote, wrong in my life. If those are what it feels like to pet a cat backwards, making sure that I do these yoga and movement and energy work is like smoothing the cat, petting it in the right direction.
Okay.
So if you can kind of get inside with what that feels like, it can answer a lot of the questions without having to articulate every freaking biological thing that is good about doing yoga. I have to answer this call. I'm really sorry. We'll come right back.
So you were telling us about your petting the cat backwards.
Fucking energy work. That's right. What was I saying?
You were basically just saying that if I understood basically, the way I kind of took it was that all these different things kind of help pet your soul in a way.
Yes, kind of. And also, it makes knowing where you stand so crystal clear. So this is where it kind of lines up with how I like to do business.
All right.
Because when I'm standing for my client, it's so crystal clear where I stand that my client can't not win, even if that means losing on their own terms. If that makes sense? There's an element to losing, like, you know where your tipping point is.
Okay.
So losing on your own terms is never wishing that you should, if only I would have done this, or if only I would have offered them $1,000 more, and my stupid realtor told me to offer this much and I'd have it. Well, that never happens with me.
Okay.
I'm going to walk you through where you're comfortable losing, so that if you lose, you can be like, okay, that was not
we tried.
for me.
We did the best we could. Or
Did the
I
best
feel comfortable with it.
I feel comfortable with the outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and how does that relate to what we were talking about, energy?
Yeah.
So how does doing yoga and doing these other things help you stay in that zone? You were saying somehow
puts you inside of it, like literally seats you as operating from your place of power and divine light.
Okay.
So when you're operating that way, some call it Christ consciousness, or some call it, manifesting the universe. Like, there's all kinds of some of the language is crazy sounding, but there's all kinds of ways to language around it.
Yeah.
Doing that work sheds so much of my own bullshit that I have so much room to navigate client bullshit and be the, what is the football guy on the front? Offense? The offensive lineman.
Yeah, the offensive.
I'm your offensive lineman.
Okay.
Spiritually, energetically.
Gotcha.
Because I'm shining so bright
that
darkness just disappears.
Right. And that kind of makes sense. I mean,
does it?
Yeah. I told you when I first met you, the way I felt, right? So I felt your energy.
Okay.
And so I appreciate that. So, and then when I first came to doing yoga, the first time I ever did yoga was here with you. So it was interesting to me because I did find it pretty energy. I did find energy somewhere, like you can feel it, right? Yeah. And it wasn't so much that as it was in my head. I felt the energy, and I just felt so good. Good. You know what I mean? Especially when we go outside. For me, being outside and being in nature, it just adds another
layer of awesomeness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's one thing I can suggest to everybody: get outside, get a little nature. Yes. Like that definitely can help your any game you're going through, mental health, business health, it just really help you think. Like for me, at least, that's what I've always used, and even for exercise, like that was one of the things I found when I know it's kind of off subject, but for some reason my head just went here.
They all are.
But when I was trying to lose weight, I was going to the gym, and I found that you could like work out for an hour on the treadmill, and you'd lose, it's like 400 calories or three, something stupid. It's like one pop or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I just found that eating less, for one thing, was the key, but also exercising. For me, it was so much easier. I could not walk on the treadmill for an hour. It's just boring.
Yes.
But if you go out and walk in the park, like an hour is just like nothing.
Goes fast. Yeah.
And it's so much, and you mentally feel so much better too when you're done. So,
you want to hear a wild story?
Yeah.
Just loosely related to the story you're telling.
Okay.
Is when I really started to find my stride for, like, my spiritual and emotional well-being.
Yeah.
I lost 30 pounds that I didn't even realize I had to lose.
Really?
Like, I wasn't trying to lose weight. I was like really learning to be light and love.
Okay.
And like the bullshit just disappeared. It's like it fell off. It disappeared.
So obviously it probably had something to do with you changing some of your habits too,
sure,
right?
But it wasn't like I'm gonna get on a treadmill and lose weight. It was like.
So how do you? It kind of brings me back to something I was thinking about earlier when we were talking about the process of getting to these things that you're trying to do, right? So I hear a lot of people talk about it's not so much if you can focus on the actual process being what the thing that you're trying to achieve.
The journey is the destination.
I guess that's a good Thank you. That was such a great way to put it. And I've heard that a million times.
But yeah, I stole it too.
Yeah, so that you agree with that then?
I do.
Yeah. Because I do that sometimes. Like, I was sitting on my porch one day, and I was actually smoking marijuana. Okay, and I'm sitting there and I'm smoking marijuana, and I'm thinking, it was the middle of the day, and I was thinking, if I just drove by right now and saw some guy sitting on his porch marijuana, what would I think about him, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't think that highly of myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, why is he doing that? You know, like, what's his story? Why is he not at work or whatever?
Yeah.
Which made me, obviously it was a self-reflecting moment, okay? Yeah. We won't get into all that, but it did make me think though, like, if you want, so when the other end of that spectrum is when I see people that are really cool looking, cool. One day I was at this thing up in downtown Farmington, and I just saw this guy, and he just looked really cool, I'm like, what kind of job does he have? Like, what does he do? And sometimes I think about that stuff, like, what does this person do when they go home? And so, like, I doubt they're going home and watching TV, right? Yeah. They're probably at home, maybe working in the backyard, working on something, or maybe they're on their laptop working on their next project. Like, that's what I think of. So I try to do those things that I think the person that I want to be would do. Does that make sense?
It does. I have some thoughts around that.
Go ahead. I'd like to hear them, because it's...
You sure you want to do this here?
Yeah.
How is that any different than what I was doing, which is presuming that people were telling me that I ought to do this with my life? How is what you're like? There's a piece.
No, I get what you're saying. To me, it is a little different though, because it's me looking at what I think is a cool life, and then saying,
here,
okay,
pause.
Go ahead. What is cool?
No.
Oh.
Well, yeah, kind of.
Okay.
But is it presuming that your life is not cool? And needs to be alternate than how it is?
Well, no, but that is important to think about that. And I think what I realized in the pot smoking scenario is that sometimes you're just in your life and you don't realize how stupid you're looking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Okay,
so, like,
that's brilliant. Yeah.
That's kind of why I'm like, well... And so then I thought, if I saw myself sitting on the porch with my laptop doing something, like, that would be a different guy.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of
I see. Okay, I get that now.
Yeah.
Then there was a piece of that I did not catch the first time through.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, I just want to just be the guy that does the things that a guy like that I would look up to would do. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I try to strive toward. And I feel like if I can do that, then that'll make me be all the other things that I want to be.
Yeah.
And so...
Part of not stupid, I'm going to take that back. Hidden secret. While you're doing those things, you can't be resenting them or not wanting to do them.
No, I don't. I actually like that. That's one of the things that I've thought about lately is with myself.
Yeah.
Is some of the things I've done. Like, I had a drug habit at one time, and I got over that.
Yeah.
that in like the small percentage of people that do that
Yeah.
and stay clean.
Because you're an overachiever.
Right. And I was an overachiever when I did them too,
Yeah.
just to be clear. But, you know, and then losing weight, like I lost quite a bit of weight, 60 pounds or something, and just
Wow.
keeping it off. And so I heard a stat.
Did you used to be chubby?
there was only a little time,
Oh, okay.
but it was for a few years, so like 5 years or something, that I kind of gained weight. And it was during the drug time too. I
Yeah.
just was eating
Oh.
crappy, and I don't know really, to be honest. I think I was just depressed,
Yeah.
probably, if I had to guess. I was probably trying to drown a bunch of issues in some drugs and chocolate.
Yep. Chocolate, that's a good one.
So, what I found for me, we're getting kind of deep in this
Yeah.
thing here, but because I honestly wasn't going to talk about this stuff on my podcast ever. I don't know why.
Why?
I don't know. For some reason, I wasn't sure if I wanted to share all that with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the more you share, the more people can just kind of relate.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yeah, and sometimes I think too that I don't want to say things because I'm like worried about what people will think, right?
Yeah.
Especially the people that have known me from my whole life, right?
Yeah.
They're all like retiring and doing all these I see all these trips around, and I'm still trying to like catch up now from all the fuck ups I did. So some of that I think about, and I know that I feel that way, but I don't want to feel that way, and I know that I'm not that type of person that usually would feel that way. But I find that, you know what I mean? I don't usually care what people think about me.
You want to not be that guy, but it's okay to have those feelings.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to deal with, right?
Yeah.
Realizing that I do have them, first of all,
Yeah.
and that's why I haven't done one of the things you talked about with me before, going on Facebook and saying, "Hey, I'm an agent. No one's
Yeah.
going to look out for you more than I am." I'm, all these
Yeah.
Facebook friends I have, right? And why haven't I done that? And so I think that was part of the reason, though.
Yeah.
I feel like even though I did tell everybody I was kind of doing this, I didn't say that I was starting over and stuff. But
Yeah.
anyways, that's something I think about. But moving forward, I know all the stuff that I've done that is kind of like extraordinary in a way, but I don't feel like it is because it wasn't.
Because it was your life, and it never feels amazing while you're the one doing it.
Right, and especially after,
Yeah.
too, right? Because even when I look back now at my journal at things I was trying to do a year ago, that I'm like, oh, that seemed like a big goal back then, and now it's just part of my routine.
Mm-hmm.
So that just, yeah, that's great. So I'm happy about that. So anyways, I'm excited.
Good.
That's where I'm going with all this. I'm
Okay.
excited because this was just the other day. I thought of both those stories because they were both like 10% or 2% or some crazy number of people that quit doing drugs,
And
stay clean,
stay and make it.
and lose weight after 2 years, continue to have the weight stay off, right?
Yeah.
So, and that, there's other things I've done. So I feel like I've got this, whatever stubbornness to me that won't let me fail at things like that. I just once I decide
Like you're
to
an
do
against
something,
all odds guy.
Right.
You're overcoming all the odds.
and I won't not win.
Yeah.
That
I don't know who you're looking to hire to help you buy or sell a home, but
exactly, but I
That
won't
guy.
lose.
got some
So,
magic.
and that's why I'm excited to do this podcast and to start working on this because I think that's where I'm going with all this is that I really want to help businesses just be better at business.
Yeah.
So I think that social media is kind of the wave of the future. I know you use it to get your
It's the
message
wave
out.
of the right now. It's not the wave of the future. It's
Right.
the wave of the right now.
You're right. Yeah, the
Get
wave
out,
of the
get
future
that out
is
of your
even.
head. Something else.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Which we won't get into AI and all that at this
Yeah,
point.
no,
but,
please.
So what?
Sorry.
No, I forgot what. So where was I going with that? I guess that's it. I'm about to change the world. No, so my business and marketing podcast. So I think using social media
Yeah.
to increase your business presence and to really get to know. We talked about people wanting to remember who Rachel is when they're thinking about selling their house.
Yeah.
So the way you do that is
Well, and can I just, I think it's important to address social media is not the only way. So a lot of new agents
Yeah.
see, they say, I need to X on social media, and because they're scared to or they don't really want to, they don't do it there or anywhere else.
okay.
There are plenty of highly successful real estate agents who do not do dick on social
Yeah,
media.
yeah.
Just do it in the rooms that you're in. Make sure people know what you do.
Right.
Like, speak kindly about your industry. Love it. If you don't have a passion for serving people, find something else to do. It can be in the industry, just not serving people. Maybe you're a paper pusher. Maybe if you hate people, I was going to make a joke. I won't say it. I was going to say you could be an appraiser. But I'm kidding. I love my appraisers.
Oh, man. That was rough.
Well, I've just had a couple of brutal ones lately.
Okay.
Unnecessarily so.
Unnecessarily?
Yeah.
You think they were picking on you?
I think that they were... I think that they wield a lot of power, and they're not ignorant to that. And then I think they're also shackled with a lot of lender overlays, depending on who the order comes from, that make their job specifically difficult for some lenders.
Okay.
It's always a complicated answer with me.
Yeah.
But it was a joke, to be clear.
Yeah. But, so you're talking about the appraiser coming in to get you a certain value for a home so they can get the loan typically?
Yeah, not just value, though, but condition and just some of the... They're all levels of quality of work, just like any industry.
Yeah.
And some people are, like, overachievers to a fault.
Okay.
That's a real thing.
Yeah. Do you get to decide who the...
Nobody does.
Yeah,
No.
so they're sent from the bank then?
It's randomly, yeah. It's
That's what you're
either
talking about.
goes to a bank of appraisers or an appraisal management company. It's round robin.
But you're talking about for a mortgage.
Yeah, I'm talking
right?
about for a mortgage.
Not for the homeowner that might want to get an appraisal or something.
Right.
Yeah, that would be different.
Right.
All right. Well, I think we covered a lot of stuff today, Rachel.
I do too.
And we got pretty deep in the weeds about...
It's our favorite place to be.
Right,
All the good
exactly.
shit's in the rabbit trails.
Yep. So, if you guys are interested in a home or any type of real estate, or you have any questions about real estate, Rachel, myself,
I was going to
Aaron,
say, call Joe.
Yeah. Well, we're all here to help
And
you.
then call me.
Yeah. Nexthome One. First of all, we're just going to say blanket.
Yeah.
They're the ones to call. Me
Can we say our
specifically.
website? The Nexthome One website? Can we say that?
Yeah.
Okay, it's nexthome.om. Oh my God, O-N-E. Nexthome, all one word, .O-N-E.
Yep. There you go. Nice and easy. And then, obviously, you can find me, localjoe.net. You want to throw out your... Do you have any other stuff you want to throw out there? Ways to get a hold of you? Or
You can, my number is 810-923-5421. Text friendly. Facebook is probably the best way to find me, and my parents couldn't spell, so my name is Rachele. Sorry, Mom and Dad, it's a thing I say.
I think it's the cool way to spell Rachel, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. It's my
definitely
favorite.
neat. I actually do like it.
I do too.
So.
It's my favorite. It makes me memorable, and I have to correct people constantly, which also makes me memorable.
Yeah. I did notice that on Facebook recently.
Yeah.
You corrected somebody.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right,
This
well,
was fun.
Yeah, we'll do it again
Bye.
sometime.